battery, so just know if it cuts off.
Oh, okay.
We have a 10% battery, everybody, but we are live a couple seconds early because we were able to steal away the winner of the very first World Putting League event at Hawaiian Rumble, Mr. Gary Hester.
Hey, thanks, y'all. Hey, it was a great feeling to finally win one there. I'm going to tell you, I've had so many close ones get away. This one really felt good. And I had a little shaky start that first round, but then the last two, it just felt good. I solid all the way through. I don't know how much you saw of it, but I just had
every shot we saw.
How did correct me if I'm wrong on I think it was your second round on hole 7. Did you surprise yourself when you
my goodness,
that ball, your face?
Oh, the ball was kicking big, that new ball. And it was in my head. I'm like, be careful, this ball's kicking so big. And man, it just grazed the wall. And that could have been disaster real quick. Of course, I made that do shit yesterday when I needed it. But I mean, it kicked off that wall. I said, just get by the bricks. Just get by, the rocks. Get by them. That's it. When it lined up, I almost apologized to Joey. But hey.
I saw that.
Yeah.
I mean, I said that in the, I was doing, welcome everybody. I'm Tom. This is Pat. This is Gary.
Hey.
I was doing live comments on the Hammer HQ, and I was just like, that's a shot where you kind of apologize to your opponent because you definitely don't try to hit that second wall on 7, but sometimes it works in your favor, and it's a game of inches, and it really was the whole time. And he was just kind of shocked. I think a lot of people didn't realize it's that close of a margin. It really wasn't every hole.
Yep, it was. I tell you, Joey's a great player. He's hard to beat, and I don't know if you know the past with me and Joey. He's beat me in some close matches for, the Tennessee State. He beat me in a close match for the Masters that year, and I just it was nice to get over the hump and beat Joey. And I love him to death. He's a great player. He's tough to beat. And I know he was rooting for me after I beat him, and that was a good feeling to have somebody, that I just beat to be rooting for me, go further on. And all the guys, we're all family. We're a fraternity here. I love everybody, and it's just great to see people rooting for me. And it was great to putt solid with so many people watching on the live stream. That was cool. It was unique. I was a little nerve wracking at first. I was a little shaky that first round, but after I calmed down, I was good to go. It felt good the last 2 rounds. I just felt like I was just, playing out with the guys.
I don't think they showed it. Pat and I were talking about it, but did you get a little nervous after? It looked like Joey, they didn't show it, but his scorecard showed it a ace on 11 after the turn in the last round, like against Matt. I mean, that had to be, because that was against Matt, right? Where Matt made the ace on 11, or was that Joey?
Joey.
That was Joey. 11. Matt,
that's right.
I got to ask about that. When Matt made the ace on 14 in the last round, you had we won't call it comfortable. You had a decent lead going into that, and everybody's sitting there going, "Is Matt going to do so?" And then he gets the ace on 14, and we're all like, "Ooh."
Yeah, I tried to get aggressive. I said, "You know what? I'm going to try to top him on this." But I didn't get the kick I wanted, and it hung in that corner, and it hung on the crack. The absolute one place on that hole. You don't want the ball to stick. So I'm like, well, it's going to ride the crack all the way. It might turn at the last. No, I can't give the hole away. And that was a scary putt. It was.
Yeah. And then you stepped right up on 15 and just put it in. And we're like, okay, like that's it.
I'm good.
16 feels like, I think you had come on our feed yesterday with Tim and Jeremy. It seems like 15 or 16 was really not playing out the ace as well.
It was not. I was fortunate. I made it twice in the final 8 elimination yesterday.
Wow.
And I think I made it one of the rounds today. I'm pretty sure I did. And I did. I made it against Joey, I think. Was it Joey? Everything's a blur right now.
I bet.
It might last a little bit. But yes, and I kind of jammed that deuce in, and I was standing on 17. I'm like, I lagged it, earlier against Rick Alessi. I said, don't lag 17, get it up there. It's a great hole. And when it went in, it was just this big sigh of relief. And then, and then all I got to do is lay up 18, and I hit the perfect layup shot. And I'm like, oh man, get up there and pull the trigger. You know, I got to get it in the hole before anything happens. For a meteor falls out of the sky. I've had so much happen. All the lights would go out. We got to replay it or something. I just got to get it in the hole. So
Did you play 12 differently? Because you played at a wraparound on 12, and that was like, I had a feeling that you might not. Because would you normally play like the rebound shot off that right wall, or?
I had played it in practice, and it's more risky. It's a better ace, but it's also risky. And I said, you know, I can really open the door if I hit a bad one there. I said, the wraparound, even if, you know, and obviously it didn't wrap around. That one round against Joey didn't, but if it wraps around, I got a deuce, and that's all I'm trying to get. But even if it kicks bad, I still have an opening for a deuce where you hit that right wall in a hurry, it could come right back at you.
Yeah.
And I just like, you know, if I don't get a deuce, have a put at a deuce. I'm trying to manage the course through there. So just like 13 the last round, I'm like, I'm not going for an ace, just jam it up on the right-hand side, get the deuce, you know, start eliminating holes, you know.
Yep. Nope. We could see it. We could definitely see it. And that was, you could see the strategy coming down, and it's a very different format. We kept talking with the guy over at Hammer that it was like, it's never usually this much pressure in a single round from hole to hole. I mean, I think, you know, I was like telling him at the end, it's like, you beat Joey because you essentially sunk one and he missed it. And it's like, when you have that kind of a margin, it's like a 6-inch putt. That's it.
Yes. Yep. Exactly.
And so then it's like, how do I hold on to it? I mean, yeah, it's just got to feel like unbelievably satisfying right now.
Oh, it's incredible. And, you know, Olivia, you know, she hugged my neck, was over with. I didn't think she was going to let go, which was great. I love Olivia. And I felt like she was happy for me. A lot of people were happy for me, and it was a great feeling to have my friends rooting for me. And not only come through, I felt like I really played solid those last 2 rounds. I mean, I had some long deuces, but I made them, you know, those last 2. You know, that was a tough one on 10, you know. Tough one on 11, real tough one on 11.
Yeah.
And, of course, I squirreled the one in on 14, trying to be cautious, knowing I was riding that ridge, and at some point it's going to break right. But if you give the hole away there, it stays out of the hole. So it's, you know, I had some tough deuce putts down the stretch, but you know, I was nervous in my first round. Every putt felt like I was like fighting it, but just like something broke before I started the second round, and I was comfortable. I didn't get nervous. I don't know if that showed. I think I asked Jeremy, and he said it kind of looked like I wasn't nervous, and I was thinking of other things. I was standing on hole 11, and I love Ron to death. He's rooted for me. You know, the old Ron Bloom that was the manager here for so long, and he always set that chair on 11. And I was standing on 11. I said, Ron, man, this is for you. And I'm looking forward. They're trying to get a hold of him so he can call me. And, you know, I just felt comfortable. I had other things in my head, no bad thoughts. You know how the bad thoughts come in, like, push this one, don't pull this one. You know, you've been pushing this one some. You know, don't hit the rocks. It wasn't there. And when I was standing up, I'm like, you know, knocking the hole. Hole 8. Hole 8's a tough one uphill. You know that.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I have been nailing it in practice. And in my head, I was standing over the ball, and I said, hey, man, I'm playing Jeremy and Tim for skins. I said, I've been making it on them all the time. That's what was in my head. I said, get you another skin against Jeremy and Tim right here.
Yeah. I mean, well, even after the first hole in the final round, I mean, the people watching on the stream could tell, like, you had hit a groove, and then after hitting 9, acing that, and then you got that bad bounce on 10 that put you in a place that nobody wants to be. Like, you know, Matt has his shot, and everybody takes that shot from that corner, right? I mean, that's where you want to, if you miss. And then we're like, all right, well, after Gary hit that one, I mean, you had those tough stretch of holes coming up after that, but like, I think the collective watching group thought you had it from there on out.
Well, I'm glad y'all thought I did. I mean, I still waited until I got that last putt in. Like I said, I'm still waiting for the meteor to fall, or, you know, a freak storm come out of the sky, or cocaine bear.
We're showing some of the comments, but both Alan Cox and Josh Mars were watching down in Australia. They were trying to get us to place a bet, trying to figure out how to place a bet, and Alan is saying that he had you. Josh was saying that Alan said you had the win from the start. So yeah.
Hey, I love it. I don't know if he's listening, but I love Alan to death. I met him several years ago. We went around the courses, and he called me coach, and I like that. And I look forward to seeing him again. I appreciate his support. Love him to death.
And you're going to have a lot of Facebook messages if you haven't checked already, because my entire feed is congratulations from the mini golf world.
Paying attention, I have not been on Facebook. I've had a purge since the week before the Masters, and I may go back to acknowledge some of these congrats. So if anybody messages me there or sends a message, I haven't responded. It's because I haven't been on Facebook since first week of October. But I may, since this has happened, I may go in there so I can respond to people.
It may be worth an hour to flip it through. It's a lot of positive vibes from
That's
players
great.
all over.
I get some time tomorrow. I'll definitely do that. So if anybody's listening, I'll get up with everybody and I'll try to respond to as many, everybody when I get a minute.
And we had people watching the feed in ours that were leaving comments. We had Hans from Sweden. We had Ricard Lochner. We had all sorts of
maybe we
cheering for you. And there he goes.
There goes the 10% battery.
We knew that the 10% battery was a possibility. We just had a lot of people tuning in. I think it is not an understatement to say that the weight of expectations on this event for a live stream in the United States for competitive mini golf, was high because people wanted to finally see the Masters there. I know we got a ton of positive feedback for broadcasting the last two rounds of the Masters this year, and that's rarely happened. And we gave some play-by-play, and tonight we had Brian Katrick and Ted and a number of other people from the World Putting League team do a phenomenal job. We had a couple streaming outages here and there. We had a couple of weird jumps from camera to camera, but it's not easy. We said it since the beginning, and the level at which you have to execute to make it perfect is nearly impossible. But the way that they executed it was beyond anybody's expectations and hopes.
Yeah, and I think the one thing that I'd probably underestimated from the gambling side was thinking through having the Hammer HQ doing their feed too. I hadn't really thought about that. I mean, there's so many streamers who do golf events or any type of event for reasons like this, whether it's gambling. So yes, you had the money and everything that was potentially coming in, and who knows how much that actually ended up being with the reach of the book, but the reach of the additional streaming and that starting to spread it out more than just, well, we streamed the Masters on our one podcast Facebook channel that only gets but so far. That was something that I hadn't really thought about, and I'm glad, and I know we talked about this before we came on, and anybody who watched the stream got to watch Tom for 3 hours, who thankfully he was able to step up for part of us. I had some kid duty tonight, so couldn't come on. I was trying to chat as much as I could on there, but I mean, I think you lended a whole level of color commentary there that, I mean, that's really what you need going forward. And and Brian was great on the mainstream. Yeah. So yeah, I'm really interested to see now where this goes. We talked about it. You've got, we don't have anything definitive. There's been rumors that maybe it's the South Carolina Open, the US Open. Both of those are end of April. That's 2 months away. Completely different formats. Are they going to come back with a format like this again? I do know if they do something like this again and it's in the middle of the day, I'm going to take the day off from work because there's no way I'll be able to focus on that. So, I mean, we're really itching now to see where this goes.
Yeah. I mean, the amount of comments and kind words that people shared with me, I really appreciate it. I just they're like, we'll have you on 10 minutes before the event. And yeah, it was really nice that they kept me on. And, this is all stuff that honestly I've picked up in the last 2 years from you and other people who've offered great advice, including kind words here from Alan, but like Alan was also like the first person to offer me his books from the Masters when he played it himself a couple of years back in 19. And that's the kind of world. I mean, he'd even asked me like, who's the heel in this world? And I'm like, I don't know. I don't really want to use that space. All the people that were playing, played amazing. They've all been incredibly kind to me as someone who's playing in like out of 70 putters, I'm in like the 50s, and these are people who are in the top 20, 30, 10 that have all offered kind advice and, helpful tips. I mean, Gary, the best tips that I got on how to get over the hump on 2 was from Gary Hester.
Yeah,
and
I hit Gary's shot on 2 still.
And Mandy fortunately caught that. And I made a video of like the aces that I made my first Masters, and I made it on my first time through Rumble. I made 2, and it was based on advice that Gary gave me. And so, and then Matt McCaslin gave me the advice on 10. And it's like funny to see these guys like that are at the top of their game. It's coming down to like just millimeters.
Yeah, well, and it was an interesting point too. He talked a little bit about the heels and stuff, and I understood Rob's point where he was talking about like that you can get a lot of that in the right setting, right? Golf's got theirs. We talked about the WWE, but like thinking back and after watching the stream and thinking about it too, like that stream didn't need that to succeed, and maybe long run it does need some more personality and stuff, and we didn't get. I know there was some interviews and stuff, but and Brian was doing a good job of trying to do some background too, but like we didn't get a lot of information about the players necessarily. There wasn't a whole lot of bio. I mean, I feel like I got more on Holy Moly than any of these people did over 2 days in terms of really setting them up as players the same way you would in like a golf event and understanding. And part of it's too, I mean, it's not like you can cut to a lot of clips of them playing other tournaments because it doesn't exist. So hopefully that, this helps to form that foundation as well and to start putting names. I mean, we've talked about this ad nauseum on the podcast, right? Like somebody like Olivia should be a household name.
Yeah,
and to be able
absolutely.
to get everything around that is going to be important.
And speaking of Olivia, this is like one of those things where the match stroke play where she had to play Greg Newport to start. For both of them, it was a disadvantage. I think Greg going into round 2, having to beat Olivia heads up 1 round is a lot of pressure. And he did amazing with it. And then, he caught Matt, if I'm correct, right?
He had Matt. I mean, that's a 1-2 punch that is really hard to handle.
That's really hard, and that's a lot of energy for 2 rounds, and it was both rounds. I mean, if I'm correct, I think Greg made hole 1, and Olivia might not have, and that might have been it. And that's the thing that is kind of why they play so many rounds at the Masters, is then you, like over a number of days, is you really do take out a few bad breaks. And that happened. There were people that had putts that were 2 inches from going in. And, someone like Gary, who fully admits on his second round when he's playing Joey that he caught a wall and on 7 and it pushed him the right way. He wasn't trying to hit that right wall on that deflection. And when it went in, we were just like, holy crap. Like I'm pretty sure that went in. I mean, it's all kind of a blur from watching it, but I know that a lot of the top players don't love the idea of it coming down to a break, and all this. This is why they play a million rounds in some of these putt-putt tournaments. But for the game of mini golf, for people watching, this is going to be a format that'll work. It's the reason why Holy Moly is single holes, because and it's edited. Let's be honest. The reason that that's happening is there are people that shot 8s on some of those holes that they saved them the embarrassment and they moved on. And that's kind of what the public wants. I mean, you look at all sports that's not like cricket where they want 2 weeks. They kind of want things to keep moving, and single round does that. Now, if you're Olivia, lose by 1 putt to Greg in any of the other matchups in the first round, I believe, would have won. I think everybody.
She had the second lowest score.
She had the second lowest score in the first round, but it's match play, and she lost. And kudos to Olivia. You know, that's a great round. And of the day, it's a great round. She had it today fairly well, but she caught a bad round. And that's where, when people were like, you know, when the guy from the Hammer HQ was like, I don't know if any of these guys, you know, like Rick or Jeremy has a chance. And I'm like, I would, you know, or, you know, even Randy, I'm like, I wouldn't count on any of them. All it takes is one weird crack, one weird bounce, and a single round that things can happen. I mean, for God's sake, I shot a 30 at Rumble once. There weird things can happen. I've not come close to that. You know, I had a shot at a 29, which would have been my best score ever. I'm not that good, but sometimes things work out for you in a single round. I shot a 40 later, which nobody did either today. So it's a course that things can go all sorts of ways.
Yeah, and I think it's important to remember, like, we may not get streaming of all the events, but having the mix, right? Like, that's where, because if you have both the Masters and something like this on your card at the end of the day, you're gonna get different results, right? I mean, it's like when NASCAR throws in a road course every once in a while. Like, you know, all right, that may not be their forte because they're not F1 drivers, but at the end of the day, somebody else may sneak in there, and people, you know, it's not the full season, and we don't expect this format to be the full season going forward. And even if it is, I mean, maybe there's a place for that too. But yeah, I'm sure we won't get a whole lot from, you know, the books or anything. I mean, it'd be interesting to see if they can tell some of the viewership numbers and stuff like that. But yeah, I mean, Josh, director with some of the knowledge of the players, some players did need more attention. I mean, I think Brian did a pretty good job. I don't think it seemed like administratively running up to this event, there was still a lot to be desired. I mean, same thing could have been said for Holy Moly in our first year too. So, you know, I think Brian did a great job trying to fill in where he had knowledge of stuff. But yeah, I mean, ideally you've got player packs on all these people, what they've done, even if it's local stuff, and that's where some of the production value and money goes to next time. Maybe that's my career change. I'll be a stat guy for mini golf production going forward.
Sorry, I'm seeing if we can get back our guests, but yeah, I mean, I think this format really lends itself to, you know, being exciting, but it does require having some people that know what's going on with the players. And frankly, I've learned nearly everything I've learned about the players from you, and knowing that Gary had come close. I knew that from you. You had said, I think the year that Joey had won, that Gary's just come close so many times. And it was really exciting that last round going into it and knowing it. Matt and Gary had never won a major there. Correct? Unless
the first US Open in 2004, Matt, the final rounds were at Rumble. So that was his first US Open win, because that was the first Open I played at, was still in Myrtle Beach.
Wow.
There.
So he was really, of the 8, it was him, Rick, and Jeremy that have never won anything of like, of you know, major event on that course. Everybody else had done it. Randy, Olivia, Greg, and Matt had all won it. So I mean, that is, it doesn't feel better for Olivia, who probably feels bummed out. Doesn't feel better for Greg, who played great, and Matt, who played great, and Randy, who had a couple of bad breaks, but generally is a great putter. You know, Jeremy and Rick, everybody, like, doesn't feel better that, you know, that Gary won. But I think at the same time, I think everybody was really excited about it, that you get this fantastic result for the event that really elevates things. And, you know, what more could you ask for? You know, did I send Alan Cox the wrong link? I'm going to try to.
Yeah, no, I mean, yeah, I mean, I don't, especially for some out of the box, and I think that getting that final eight was big too. I mean, part of the reason you were able to talk about these players is because they were all named players, and the fact
Yeah.
that even though Rick and Gary and Jeremy hadn't won, I mean, we've had a good run of having podcasts people on the show who've done well with Jeremy and Matt winning the other day and Gary being on yesterday and closing it up today, but like. I mean, I'm a little, and maybe Jeremy was maybe the outsider of the eight who kind of was the dark horse a little bit. I'm slightly surprised maybe we didn't have one other name slip into the top eight, but eight's not a huge number with that amount that came through. So I'm not really surprised by anybody who was up there. And, I think the other thing too, and it's all speculation too, in terms of what they do with the tournaments, but like how much more do we get in terms of diversity of players, after watching this, is there going to be a bigger push? I was thinking yesterday, this started off with a real weird schedule and then they adjusted it. And so now I was like, well, 2 days, I probably could have applied and could have gone down there and had the shot because I was jonesing to be back on the course, like watching them putt and take these putts and, commentating and talking about, yeah, I would have done this here. I mean, I probably would have done, probably would have done terribly on camera because that's my forte. But, I would definitely, again, assuming I'm going to be allowed to, rethink if they did something like this, applying and giving it a shot.
Well, and I think this first event, it's sort of like in a weird way, like the first season of Holy Moly, where the people they casted, they were really eager to have them in. Ooh, we got guests. We have I sent the right link to Tim Talley. Hopefully we can add him to the stream. I think we'll have Gary here. We'll see. Tim. Hello, Tim.
Hello, fellas. How y'all doing?
We're doing good. Are you out with the guys?
Unfortunately, well, I'm glad to be home, but I'm actually at home. I left this morning.
Oh,
I told him I didn't want any of my bad vibes or bad luck rubbing off.
oh.
I said, I've seen you finish second so many times. Maybe if I'm away, you'll win. And that worked out.
Now you've set a precedent, though. You're not going to be able. He's not going to allow you around. Yeah.
So how did you feel about watching your buddy Gary win that one?
If you had heard me in the house, you would have thought I was watching a football game. I was hollering, and my wife, she came in to watch it with me. She usually doesn't care anything about it, and she, was so glad to see him win. I mean, like y'all have said, we pull for everybody. I'd like seeing him, but Gary's has so many seconds, and it's has been so disheartening to him. At times he's thought about just giving up, but I'm glad he finally won one tonight. That was awesome. It made my day.
I remember actually that conversation. I was at the Red Putter
this
year,
right. Mm-hmm.
And we were talking about because Tim won the Red Putter the previous year. It would have been 2021, and we had Gary there, and he's just like, I don't know how many more years I have at this.
Yeah,
it's like how many more chances am I going to get near the top? And he didn't have like a great showing at the Red Putter. Like I felt really weird where it was like I think I tied you and I did better than Gary, and I'm like that's definitely not the
and what happens there every year, he just wears everybody out in practice. I mean, nobody can come close to him, but that course can just it can get you. But even after the pop stroke in Orlando, he didn't.
He's so close.
He was out of the money there. I mean, he finished second in Fort Myers a week ago, but even then after that, he was like, I just don't know how much longer I'm going to do this. He said, and he's just turned 67 also. He said, I just don't have many years left in me. I just don't know.
What an amazing story. I mean, here's Alan Cox even like, he said he was literally like crying. I mean, it was, I mean, Gary is a pretty level, like he's kind of got a stern look sometimes, but you could tell you could tell he got some emotion, especially in the second round when he hit off that wall that we talked about on 7 and he made it. You
Yeah.
could tell he was having some fun, and I was like, good. Like he
Yeah.
needs this. But like I'm sure all of us thought down that last thing. It's like, just don't have it.
Yeah,
Like,
I mean,
Matt win it, not Gary lose it. That would be
and,
the scenario.
and for a
to say.
minute I thought it was happening again when Matt made of all holes 14.
Yeah.
Jeez.
I was like, is it going to be one of those, where he's played great, but yet somehow is going to lose? But then when he made the next hole, I was like, okay, he's in pretty good shape now. Then Matt made 16, but him making 15, Gary making that was a big help for him, I think. But
It was huge. It was huge. Yeah, and here's John Drexler. Gary is just such a great ambassador and so giving with his help and guidance. Thrilled to see him win this event. I mean, it's just it's so exciting. Their phone's dead. Jeremy had him on. He's like, we're at 10% and they dropped out. And I'd like to think that all of them are just like showering him with fun. I'm sure he's still like sinking in that.
Yeah, Jeremy, I haven't heard back from Hester. I've texted him, but I figured he's probably getting about 8 million texts. And
I told him he's got to go check Facebook. He's been off for a while because everybody's been pinging him. And I hope, because this has been all streamed and you've got the PLN and all that, like, hope he gets a good sizzle reel out of this being a winner.
Yeah. But yeah, Jeremy said, you're going to miss out on the fun tonight. You should have stayed. And I was like, yeah, I know. But, and you got to know Gary, we call him a water snob. He only drinks Le Bleu bottled water. I don't know if you ever heard of that.
No.
And it's actually really good. He was right when he was telling me that. I was like, oh, water's water. But anyway, Jeremy, we all stay together, and he was like, instead of showering him with champagne, and I'm going to spray him with Le Bleu. I said, that would be fitting. Oh, man.
That is awesome. Le Bleu, if you're watching, you got a sponsorship.
Sponsor
there. There's gambling now. Maybe Bob's dream of sponsors will come true. But, Tim, you competed in this format. I mean, I know that you had a great first round, and obviously the second round you was just right on the border. I mean, how did this format work for you as someone who's played Red Putter, US Open, Masters, PopStroke? Like, how did it feel for you?
Well, for me, it wasn't really any different because I never got to the, today. I mean,
but even the 2-round,
I liked it. I like it because I don't feel I'm up, to the at the level of most of those other guys in there. But with 2 rounds, I mean, anybody can throw 2 good rounds in there and get in there. So I was kind of hoping that, but I didn't. But yeah, I liked it, and I would have loved to have been in that tonight because if you're hot at the right time, it's yours for the picking. But Hester, I felt the whole time was had a good chance. Like I was watching you, Tom, with what's the guy?
Rob over.
Yeah. I was watching it on my TV, but I had the computer beside me listening to y'all. And, and the one time, he was talking about, he didn't say it this way, but it almost made it sound like Hester didn't really have much of a chance, because he was, because the odds against him and everything. And that's when I piped in, you're underestimating him. And then a lot of other people that knew Gary were like the same thing.
Yeah.
If I could have bet on that, I would have definitely threw some money Hester's way, because I mean I knew he had a good chance.
Well, and I even said it on the feed. It's like he's like 2 weeks out of a very close finish at PopStroke.
Yeah,
I mean, he was 1 stroke off the lead, and he even was telling us yesterday about the one hole that
he should have been tied for first. He finished 2 off the lead. But that one hole in the first round where it hits, I mean, it's an easy deuce putt, hits the bottom of the cup and bounced all the way out and then rolled down the hill. I mean, he did really good bouncing back after that, because in the past he might would have just said it's not meant to be. But he was telling me about it, and he's like, again, something crazy has happened to me. But he kept battling, and then did get to second. and he seemed to, he didn't dwell on that much, about that happening, which is good.
No,
Yeah.
and he had
If
a
you-
couple things this final round where you could see, like, I mean, I think about the shot at 10, right, where he clipped the wall
Oh yes,
and he ends up behind the hole where just
and that's a tough putt.
right, none of us ever want to be, and that's
No.
one where you could have very easily been like, oh well, this is where it starts to come undone,
Mhm.
right? Like,
Yeah.
and he just took his time, went up there, knocked it in, and yeah, you could tell there was a lot of confidence at that. Even if he doesn't think there was confidence coming through the feed.
Yeah. 10 and 11 actually, he hit 2 bad tee
Yeah.
shots, and I was like, oh
Yeah.
no, but and he had tough deuce putts, but I mean, just drained them. It's, like you said, with a lot of confidence, and after that, I was like, I think he can do it. He's got it, which I knew he could do it. It's just him believing in himself. He doubts so much because he has been snake bit so many times.
Yeah, and I mean, and that's the fun thing to see is like you want to see everybody get one as much as it's nice to see the stories of people rack up wins. You also want to see like someone who's always been in the hunt
Mhm.
finally get their day. And sure, it's match play and it's shorter rounds, and some people can say, well, put it longer, but it's like Gary's been there. Like he's
Yeah.
played 12 round, 4 round, 6 round, whatever you call it, tournaments. And he's probably lost to literally everybody in the field. Well, including Jeremy, I'm sure, has taken a few skins off him too.
Yeah.
So it's like he's lost to everybody in that field. And a bunch of them, like he had said to Joey, lost him in a big major.
Yeah.
And he got his moment.
Yeah, and Gary is the best or the nicest guy to show people shots, which pretty much everybody does, but he'll go out of his way, and he has helped my game and Jeremy so much. I mean, if you just look back a few years ago, we were, not anywhere up near the top. And I know last night Mike Johnson messaged me, and he was like, what in the world has Jeremy, what routine is he, or what's he doing to have, he said, I've never seen anybody improve so much in 2 years. What's the secret? And I said, Gary Hester. I was like, Gary's kind of taken him under his wing there and really been helping him. He's just improved his game so much. And like I said, he's improved mine, especially a lot of it just giving me confidence, telling me, that I can do it, and just making me a smarter player. I used to try, if there was an ace, a 2% chance of ace in the hole, 98% get in trouble, I was going for the ace. And he finally got me to where I will play a little bit smarter, because he's a very smart player. He'll that's why when I knew we went in 18 with the lead, he had it won, because pretty much all he would ever do, even when us playing our little skin games, he would just he said, I don't want to go for the ace here. So my shot here is the layup.
Yep.
And so he's only hit that about 1 million times already, so he's going to be in good shape.
Yeah, he even did that on 12 there, on the one with the rock, where he was like telling us he wrapped it around on the last round. And I was like, it's a super smart play. Like you're going to get in way less trouble. That ball will never come back to the tee box. You'll have a shot at a deuce. And the worst you're going to do, at the very worst you're going to do, is a 3. And he knocks that in at 2. And same with 13. Even told us when we had him on for a second here, he's like, he played it up right, on the right-hand side. It probably didn't have enough speed to get the rebound in and all of that, but you give yourself an easy deuce on 13, that's as good as like an ace, because few people are going to get that ace.
Right. Yeah, it's smart. That's because, like I said, I was listening to y'all, and I was also listening to K-Trick. And when he first put the ball down, Brian thought he was going to try that, bank off the right, that tricky shot. He said, oh, he's going to try it too. And I was, when my wife Chanel said, no, he's not trying that. He's playing the safe shot. I said, he's no way he's going to try that, which he would. When we play our skins, he would do it sometime. He said, well, I got to practice in case, I really need an ace and I've got to go for it. This is the best ace shot. I mean, he prepares for everything. I mean, he's probably the most prepared player out there. I mean, he's for the different weather. Like, when I'll come down from the Masters, he'll walk me through, and he'll have these little variations. Well, if it's windy, it's a foot in the ball. If it's not windy, it's a foot. And if it's windy, you aim outside left. I mean, he's got all these little notes. I'm like, man, I have a hard time adjusting like that. I've got a shot. If it don't work, I'm like, I just don't know how. But he he says, I want to know why it doesn't work or why it does work, and I'm gonna figure it out. And he usually does. So he's a smart golfer.
Yeah, he is. Yeah, I remember him doing that at Red Putter, where I think I was just out there grinding, and he was just sitting down with his notes and kind of like unloading all that he had taken in from the shots that he had been playing. And it's that, I mean, he's just a really, really smart, heady player. And I'm sure as someone who puts in that kind of work, it's just really frustrating not to get over the top.
Yeah.
And I think that's why everybody's so happy for him, because it's just like, finally the thing that we all knew could happen happened. And it's, you know, they're probably putters who are going to, you know, some of that field, if they just get aggressive and they get on a run, that they can just knock them through. And Gary kept to his game, and, you know, slow and steady wins the race. And he sure did. I mean, I think yesterday he was saying that, you know, he's went -4, -5. He's playing okay. And I think we all said that could do it. And I believe that was the final round was what, a -4?
That's what when you said that, I was like, what did he end up at? Let me see. I think
it was -5.
Did he? That's
I
right.
think he was 3 after 9, wasn't he? And he made 15
and then he made
and 17. Yeah, it'd be 5.
Yeah.
And that was playing, you know, the last hole really conservative.
Yeah.
And he's actually good at acing 18 if he wants to, because when it would come to a skin once in a while, I mean, a lot of times he'd say, I'm just going to hit my layup shot. But when he wanted to go for it, he usually made it. He's incredible. And he's the best player out there for sure on hole 8. Did you notice he made it every time today, I think? I know when they showed him, I know he made it the last round and the round before that. I'm not sure about the one before. But in practice, he hardly ever misses that shot. You know, we played a ton of rounds together this week. Hardly ever misses it.
Yeah. And
that's just a hard shot. I mean, you can get close, but it's to
so
make it
hard,
consistent like he does.
Well, and Matt got in trouble, I believe, in his round, either the first round or the second round. I remember they were just hopping around. I think Matt got in that little valley of that you don't want to be in. And so in that last round, when Matt's putt went sailing past, it's like that is on the spot what happens in a night like that. That was in Matt's head. Like a hole like that, when you have something like that happen, you're just like, I can't do that again. And so you're gonna take a little bit of the touch off of it and just make sure you're not rolling back into that area. And Gary's just confident and just knocks it in.
Yeah. It was so good to see. It's way past due. And like I said, I'm kicking myself for coming home right now.
You know what? You said, you know, sometimes you're just like, I don't, you know, I have bad luck or whatever. It doesn't even really matter. You weren't there. Maybe you not being there in some weird way, you could have said the wrong thing to him at the wrong time.
Yeah.
And he doesn't win it. So Gary has Tim Talley to thank for going home and watching it at home.
I'll never get to stay again
because all of it worked out. And this is just for tonight. Like, you can stay for the rest of it, but for tonight, Gary Hester gets the win because Tim's there at home and Jeremy's there with like fancy water to throw on him. And you know, it's all those little things. I mean, it's the superstitions that we all have when you step up, and it's like,
well, as Jeremy says, he's not superstitious. He's just a little stitious.
I think that's good. Well, thanks for joining us, Tim. I think Pat and I need to wrap up because I'm probably going to lose my voice soon.
Yeah, you've been talking nonstop for a while.
I have, but I was supposed to be on for 10 minutes, and then they're like, "Hey, you know, do you want to just keep going?" I'm like, "Sure, why not?" Like, it's like it's going to be. Pat and I are still messaging, so it's going to be no different. I'm going to watch the event, and yeah, I mean, what a fun thing where it just really came down to it. So thanks for joining us, Tim. I'm glad we got to give someone who's friends with Gary that's not like with a dead camera phone right now a chance to talk. And I know we're going to see you in contention, continue to be in contention in Pop Stroke and USPMGA events this year. So we'll see you soon out there, Tim.
All right. Thanks for having me, fellas.
Yeah.
Y'all take care.
You too. Tim Talley, we get all the guests. If things work out right,
Tim should win something sometime soon.
we had Jeremy on not too long ago, defies the odds and makes the top 8. We had Gary on yesterday. We had
Matt Rolstad on earlier.
Matt Rolstad won. A newer putter, Jason, who's been messaging with us and is new AMA member, enjoyed the coverage, and he's really hoping to get the same at the US Open. And John Drexler wanted to say thanks, Tim, for representing us so well this week. And I couldn't say it better. Tim did great. He's one putt off, and who knows what it was, but he had a great first round. And I think that does get to a point that Jason brought up, though. Will the USPMGA or the World Putting League, whatever it's going to be able to maintain this? Because it sure seems like the World Putting League is behind all of this momentum happening. I was telling you yesterday, I think there's more Instagram posts from the World Putting League side of things in like a week than the entire history of the USPMGA's Instagram page. And I know this stuff isn't like the most important stuff in the world to like be on social media, but not even having the results of events and winners, like this is the stuff that you could see from our feed, from the Hammer feed, that there's people that are interested in this and they're not getting it, but they want it.
Yeah, I mean, I spent the 2 days here, I mean, just consuming, I mean, between the odds and they had the stats up after yesterday and watching, and you like you said, social media is not the end all be all, but you have to have it out there. And we talked about this on our episode last week when we recorded on Wednesday. We had no idea what was going on with this tournament.
We didn't
know who was playing. We didn't know what the start times were. There was nothing published where I was going to be able to bet on it. And so the fact that it pulled off is great, but like you now need to take this, and I'm doing the bad get fired up. You now need to take this and make sure that from here until whatever your next event is, even if it's the US Open, you should be bombarding everything. And because that's what the World WMF is going to be doing as we start to announce the World Championships and WAGM and stuff. You just need the content out there, because otherwise it's going to die off. And I really hope, not to make think about this all the time, but I hope that the USPMGA starts doing the players solid and get this information up on their website, get profiles up there, you think about
streaming, broadcast doesn't even exist.
Right. But taking, like, you can't really find out more about Gary if you wanted to. Like his resume of all of the things he's done, and I'm sure he doesn't want to show all the second places off, but that's still a hell of an achievement, right? In all of these things. And so that type of stuff needs to get out there, especially if you're going to have sports betting going, because people are going to want to know about these players. They're going to want to, I mean, you saw it from Rob on the, like, he was going strictly by odds. He didn't know any of these people from Jesus, so if
he was going by, he was even going by, he was even going by what he could see on the screen, which, he's just like, that looks like a flat putt. And it's like, well, on 15, the camera, I can see where they're standing. They're standing at a weird angle to the right of the tee box to be out of the way. But that also then gets rid of the full on curvature of that hole that makes a huge difference in watching them play it, because you can't really get a good perspective how they're approaching it. And that'll be a thing they'll figure out. But the thing is you got to see the ball move, and that's the most important thing. And fortunately, we got to add a little bit of commentary on the Hammer thing.
You need those flyovers like they have when you're watching the Masters of, here's hole 12 and here's where the players are going to line. I mean, that's the type of stuff. So, I mean, I hope this is a positive aspect for change. I mean, I think we've seen some good things here and there over the years that haven't really been followed up on, and this one seems like it's got a better chance than others.
Yeah.
So,
That-
and I'm cautiously optimistic.
Yeah, and I know, to toot our own horn, because that's what we do. The AMA, we are interested in doing as much as we can for video content, photo content, sharing out scores. If you go to, coupleofputts.com/cozy open, it has a whole recap of our event that just happened recently for our first in real life event. And I'm going to be adding some of that photos and videos and stuff to our event page for AMA. And we'll get that from the O Street event. And we'll try to get that from literally every event. We want it within the day, stuff on social media, so people know who won and celebrate them, have them invite, have them be excited about it and share with their friends. I mean, this is stuff that maybe there's an older generation that's not as important, but if we're talking about growing the game, that's the easiest way to do it, is to have stuff that people can share out in the world. And then they're like, oh, you play mini golf? I didn't know that. That's cool. When's your next event? I kind of want to go. We had Rob today that was like, I got to go to one of these events.
Yeah.
And it's the reason why people don't even think of it as a competitive game is because we haven't seen it as a competitive game. We've seen it as a game show. We've seen it as classic putt-putt videos. We've seen hole-in-one videos and, videos of like a couple going out and playing like courses to show you what it plays like, but not playing very well. They get a ton of attention on YouTube, but we don't actually have like the competitive game with serious people that know how to putt being highlighted. And this is an opportunity.
Yeah. And I mean, I was talking to my wife about this. We were in, where the heck were we? Oh, Red Robin the other night on the weekend. And, what was on TV? Cornhole. Yeah, they were showing cornhole and the Bruins were playing, and I live in Connecticut and that wasn't even on the television. So, but like I'd be interesting to see if we have any idea of what the eyes are here, because, I'm hoping that's the next level where it's just randomly on somebody's TV at Ruby Tuesdays at like 4:00 in the afternoon, even if it's a rerun, right? Like just you start to get that. But I mean, I guess the real positive thing is we have no shortage of content for the podcast to be able to cover going forward. So we're in a pretty good niche position as the sole US based mini golf podcast that I know of.
Yeah. I mean, and it's a nice place to be. And the people that are making content, that have given us good feedback, we really appreciate it. I've got a note from Brock Gillespie, who's done some great stuff with the what is it, the National Putting League, the
National Putting Tour.
National Putting Tour. And I know that he's been doing some stuff at the Pop Stroke events. It's great to see, point people to O Street Mini Golf, point people to Frank Bassessi's channel, 54 Problems podcast. Like, there's people making mini golf media stuff that's super cool, that's worth checking out. And we're eager to share out on that, because we want to see more people doing it. We want to see more events like this, because I don't need to be talking for 4 hours about it, but I'm happy to, because, I mean, we have, no offense to the Bogey Boys, but when you go up to the guy who owns the course and you call him Bob Katrick, you're just like, woof, come on. Like, that's a little bit of a miss when God knows how much money those people all spent to put on this event, to just kind of like not know really what's going on. And I think that's going to be the key, is this going to be sustainable? This was not a cheap event. They had 4 cameras, but my bet is they couldn't have done this for under 5 figures. And I would say it probably could have cost them into 6 figures once you figure out streaming, hiring people that are doing camera work, multiple camera people. All of that work is really well paid. And, that you really can't get that for cheap. We'll see how it goes. There are some people making their own videos, and, there's tournaments coming up in Myrtle Beach in April, and Jason's watching Frank Bassessi's videos. Encourage people to watch those. but more of these events where it's happening in real time, it just takes like a real serious production and people that know what they're doing, and it's just going to cost money over time. So we'll see if that is we'll see if that's a model that'll work. Ted hinted at yesterday that there's going to be more of these events, and the hope is that if they do more of these events, then maybe we know publicly more about it. We had some birdies in our ear because we're the podcast that let us know who some of the people are playing, and some of it was teased out. But you just ask around to the players and you hear who's going and who's not going to Myrtle Beach. But if you're going to have a betting event and you're going to try to build this thing out, you kind of need to advertise who's playing more than like 4 or 5 days out. And you got to advertise more than just, Olivia and Matt and Greg and all these. I don't know if there was many videos with Gary in there in advance. I mean, I think there was like one a while back of Gary making an ace that maybe was on a USPMGA Instagram post or whatever, but he's there in Myrtle Beach, and it's like you got to build up that content library and have that stuff to share out and promote it. And they have it now from a full event, and so hopefully they're utilizing this as best as they possibly can.
And I mean, I guess, maybe the World Putting League actually did call it, because I remembered I pulled up their website. He was the very first featured pro putter.
It's true.
That they put on there, and
I
he's
had a
the face
profile
right
for
at the bottom who comes up first. So insider track apparently. And he's got a nice little bio there at least. So, I mean, I guess that goes to some of what we need to call. But yeah, you're right. I mean, I think I've said this before, as somebody who casually bets on sports, I mean, there's not a lot of events that I just put money on without knowing something about or being able to understand what the players are. And I may not be able to watch everything, but if I'm putting money on like the Premier League over in England, I at least know who those teams are and know what the matchups are. And here, I don't know. I'm trying to think, like, I guess this is the example. I don't go bet on cornhole, but I could watch that. Like, I could actually have access to that. And I would certainly, if I had had the chance, I would have bet here. I mean, I think there's.
Well, you couldn't, and that's the other.
Well, that's what I mean. Well, that's what I mean. Like, I've never heard of Betfred until literally 2 days ago.
Nice guy, and the people we talked to over there,
yeah,
nice,
great.
like,
and seems like a good book, and their app is nice, but like they were in what? And I mean, I guess you could have done it in all the states. I'd heard that potentially it wasn't in all the states that they were licensed in, but even if it was like 10 states, and most of which were not in a population that had a lot of putters from either.
I mean, what did you say that like Colorado and Wyoming?
Colorado and Wyoming were the main ones. I mean, they're also in like Ohio, Maryland, Pennsylvania. So if you were able to there, again, not being in those states, it was hard for me to confirm a lot of that stuff. But those are not, I mean, they're not, well, nobody's in South Carolina because there's no betting down there, but like your concentration of players where you'd have even the family and friends money in there. Again, some people bet on it. I don't know how those economics are going to work out, but it'll be interesting to see if there is a next one. Does that show up on DraftKings? Does it show up on FanDuel?
Because that was teased out in advance and then not teased out, and they're like, no, it'll be on there, and then it will, and then we were told, it's going to be on in Colorado, and I messaged numerous friends in Colorado to have them send over what they could see on DraftKings, and no one could see it. Well, if people let the podcast know if you saw it in other places, on other places other than Betfred, but they're going to need that if it's going to cost this much to produce events. They're going to need to have some revenue coming in for it, and hopefully they can kind of figure that out. But I guess we'll be here to comment in either way, and they have a lot of people doing more, and hopefully that's helping them step up their game. I mean, along with the AMA, we have PopStroke doing big purse events. They're doing broadcasts. There's all sorts of people doing competitive mini golf that is looking good. And I would hope they would want to step up as people that have invested some time and effort in, some level on Holy Moly, and what exactly it is not totally sure. But we have over here Jason chiming again. It's like also hopes the future tournaments allow people of all ages to attend, since you had to be 21 plus to play for this one. And that's another
Well, and
really
that's
great
something
point.
we didn't really talk about. And it meant they did, I can't remember if it was the Rob streaming or if it was Brian who mentioned like the average age of that field, especially once you take Olivia out of it, was probably well into the 50s. I mean, we talked about Gary 67. I mean, it's good that you can play this sport for a long time, but there is a serious lack of youth movement. And again, not to continue to compare us to cornhole, but like I was watching cornhole the other day, and the kid who was playing was literally 18 years old in this championship. So you've got an entire demographic that isn't connected to this, and it goes back to the social media and all these other things. Now, obviously, under 21, you can't bet on it, anyways. But there's a demographic, there's a block that hasn't been tapped into that I think is a blocker to the big time growth in the future.
I mean, I think Justin Monning and Brandon Davis, that two young up and coming putters that I think they both look like they're either in the 20s, 30s, somewhere in that ballpark. They're in the lower end of the tier. And then Olivia at 27 is probably close to being the youngest. Brandon and Justin might be younger, but it is, John Drexler saying it's really, it's a barrier to new players. It's really hard to compete against players with 30 years of elite tournament experience. I felt that first year I stepped in the Masters, I had very modest expectations from having known people like Aaron from O Street, who just kind of went down there and thinking like, I do well. Like I in New Jersey, I'm going to do well. And even like Olivia, as John is saying, she's 20 years of experience on me right now. And I look at my game and it's like, I'm not trying to let myself off, but that even you've got like a solid 10 plus years of experience. So
20 years.
Right. Even more. So it's like, I'm looking 3 years into it. I'm like, so I'll always be behind, but that also, and we talked about it when we were talking with Rob on the feed, is also one of the things that you need to make the case to get tournaments in different places. You need to start to remove, like, it's not only that they have that many years of experience, they have that many years of experience on that course. Yes.
Matt won his first US Open, and Rumble was part of that. And that was in 2004. So he's been playing that course for 19 years. Yeah. And knows whereas, and we talk about this with the AMA side of things, like some of our courses are either like Matterhorn's not even 10 years old. So you can't have that much in terms of experience on that course. Right. So we need to find different ways to break into that because otherwise you just sit there and I mentioned this sometimes. I was like, well, at some point, all these people who are above me are going to get old enough that they won't be able to play mini golf. And then I will be the old person that everybody's like, oh, he's got like 50 years of experience. I mean, hopefully I win at some point, some of these major things, but like, that's not a good model at the end of the day.
No. And there needs to be a youth, there has to be like a youth and an undercard circuit. And it's not to downplay what we're doing in the AMA, but I do feel like we have younger, we have less experienced players in some of the tournaments, and I view that as a really good thing that we're contributing to the game, is that we're getting more people involved in it. We see it in our home state of Minnesota, where there's people who came to mini golf in different ways. A lot of them came via Walkabout VR that were playing that, and they're like, oh, you can play mini golf competitively. And that is kind of it's not meant to be an indictment on what has happened in the past, but it is an opportunity where we're at now and saying, there's an opening, let's go for it. And I think everybody has to be thinking about that. It's like, how do we get more people involved? And if people think the solution is going to be high stakes games that that are going to have $300 purses, or people that, or tournaments with high purses where you have people that have been playing them for 20 years are the only people that are able to win, it's going to be a harder entry point for other people. So it's like encourage their growing an undercard of things. And that's, that's why we are eager to talk about all of the tournaments and all of the people improving across the podcast and across the AMA. Like I've talked with multiple course owners this week in places that don't have tournaments, that are just doing them for the first time, that are eager to do it, that they don't have good information out there. And I think that's like one of those things where it's like on our podcast, like checklist, like what topics do we need to discuss? Here's how to run a tournament. I have a feeling if we do that, we're going to be sending that link out to, podcast to about 20 people that have talked to us. And it's like, here you go. Here's some tips. And I think that's more of what needs to happen. And I hope that, these events with a small number of people are also mixed with continued growth of big events with lots of people, with lots of intergenerational like knowledge being shared and growing the game at a lot of levels. And
well, that's the
time
thing.
will
I
tell.
mean, there's a bunch of levels and there's a bunch of variations to mini golf, which
Yes.
not a lot of sports have. And I think about like
No.
my wife shoots archery, and they have kind of similar in that, the targets are all more or less the same, but you've got compound bows and bare bows and in different things. And they kind of come together at certain points, and they go away and do their separate thing at certain points. And there's levels and divisions, and we've got all of that here. That's just not quite pulled together enough yet. And yeah, the lanes of these big high value ones, they need to be there, but then they need to be supplemented by the lane that we're trying to fill, and kind of that, I don't want to call it like minor league, but that like development, getting people into the game, getting them used to playing tournaments, winning some money, and preparing them to go to these major tournaments. I mean, I think of people like, like Sean Brown, like his experience through Puttcraft and AMA, I'm sure he would do fine at a Masters tournament first time out because he's been through this. So,
and we have Brock Gillespie, sharing about the putting world in Scottsdale, is doing a $30,000 purse tournament in late March and early April. Can share that out. And there are lots of different people doing it. And, I was going to say, and God forbid, and I know there's some purists out there that will cringe at this, there should be more tournaments on novelty courses. There should be more tournaments like Mix that end at a place like Park King. There should be more tournaments at places that have unconventional rules and like scoring. I don't think it's the end of the world. Like people are going to come into the world of mini golf with that. You have putt shacks popping up all over, and they have unconventional scoring. It's not right or wrong. It's just different. And if we want to have people come in at different entry points, you're going to need that. And in the same way that there's stroke play and match play and skins, expand your thinking further. And that's not a bad thing, because if you all of a sudden eliminate every course that is a jump or a windmill or a pipe or something mechanical, and just say that that's not acceptable, you're eliminating a ton of people. I mean, would you and I like to play putt tournaments? Absolutely. Am I going to drive 9 hours to play in a putt tournament? Absolutely not, because I don't have a course to practice on, and it would feel like a completely futile effort to do that. And in the same way, it's why I don't go down to Myrtle Beach for every event, and probably won't go down this year, is it's a real commitment of time. Olivia didn't actually have that much practice this time around compared to the Masters. And it's one of those things that actually shows out a little bit. And it's like the ability to have your home course is a big deal. And so by putting all of the world of mini golf in one place this year in Myrtle Beach is kind of a big disadvantage. And I think that's what, talking about the USPMGA courses were too goofy. And then, John saying we need a big tent. And
Well, I mean, the fact of the matter is, I mean, you're going to turn off people when let's say you had a tournament at Putchak, right? But the people you turn off, that pool of people is so much smaller than the pool of people that you can bring into a Putchak tournament and then convert some level of them to the more purist type tournaments, because that pool that's over here is the other 300 million people who don't play competitive miniature golf in the world.
Yes.
So I think there has been historically a lot of loud voices and a lot of people not willing to go that direction, because you're like, oh, if I can't get the pros here, what am I really doing? Well, it's like, to some extent, you know, you don't want to put the pros totally off either, but like, you don't need them for everything. You'll be
Yeah.
able to convert people, because some amount of people, if you have 50 people at a novelty course tournament, one or two of them are going to get hooked on it and be able to convert the other way. And so if I don't get the one or two pros to come play parking tournament, am I going to cry that much? I don't think so. I think that's the way we got to think about it. You're just pool that you haven't brought in is so much bigger than the pool that is in. So how do you tap into it? And then even goes with like golf too. Like,
yeah,
I mean, if you look at like the Pop Strokes and some of the other things, it is more tightly wound with golf. But there's a whole pool of people playing miniature golf who give two craps about regular golf and don't want to play regular golf. And we can't, it's a fine line as a sport that we walk in terms of all these relationships. And even me, like, I like Pop Strokes, I like City Golfs, but like at the end of the day, if I'm playing 12 tournaments throughout the year, 10 of them are going to be on courses that I find way more fun and have obstacles and have moving things and are in locations I want to go to. And that's, I'm certainly not one of the top players out there, but like pretty good. So, that's
absolutely
my view on things. And I think there's more, if I talk like Highlighter and Justin and stuff that's out there, but I mean, I think there is ways, and I think I feel positive and again, cautiously optimistic that stuff like this is starting to move everything in the right direction. It's getting people talking about it too.
Yes.
So.
And kind of to that point, and I've said this in a podcast we did previewing the Masters earlier, if you were forced me pick my favorite courses in Myrtle Beach, Rumble wouldn't be number one. It'd probably fall below Mount Atlanticus for my own tastes. And I know some people wouldn't like that, but I'm like, I like places that have a lot of quirkiness and personality. And so do other people. Some people like dinosaurs more than they like pirates, and and some people like, tropical themed courses more than other stuff. And that's some people's entry point to the game, but that's fine. I mean, I wouldn't have gotten to where I am with the game if I didn't have an entry point that worked for me, which was some more of the novelty courses. And I still like them, and there's nothing wrong with it. It's like with music. There's some people's entry point is something like esoteric and super cool, and then other people's entry point is total like pop obvious stuff. It's like I listen to like 50 years ago, it's Boston and Aerosmith, and now it's, Taylor Swift and Dua Lipa or whatever. But you might have people that are listening to that get really into cool stuff and make something on their own that you wouldn't expect from that. But they might not get there because people are like, well, you can't like that and do cool stuff. It's like, no, you can like Parking and Mount Atlanticus and Cool Crest more than you like Pop Stroke and Hawaiian Rumble and other courses. I even, and the funny thing is, I think when I first saw putt-putts, I wasn't fascinated by them, but weirdly, because they're so rare to find, I kind of find them more fascinating on its own level. I don't think I could compete on them, but I find them incredibly compelling in a way that I didn't initially think of it. And I don't think that would have, I think that would not have changed had I not gotten involved in the competitive side of things. And I think that's where you just have to take people where they are, get them in the game, and see where it goes. But yeah, we'll have lots more to say on the podcast, I think. Pat, final thoughts from you?
No, my final thoughts were it was exciting to watch tonight. I am super happy for Gary. I'm happy for everybody who made the quarterfinals. I'm excited that everybody at some point got a little bit of their due over the past 2 days,
Yes.
and I was very, very pleasantly surprised at the outcome.
Ditto. You said that perfectly. Thank you to Tim for joining us. Thank you for Jason, John, Brock, Alan, Josh, all the people that jumped in the comments on this. We really appreciate you supporting what we're doing. We just like watching this stuff, and it's nice having people that are supporting what we're doing. And again, congrats to Gary. You did fantastic. I'm glad that we had Tim on to give some context of what it really meant. I think Gary probably couldn't say that in his own words, because I'm sure he is just in a headspace that he's never been before. And it's really great. And yeah, hopefully the World Putting League will bring all this together into one, and that we can find lots of ways to collaborate. I know the AMA is interested in it, and kudos to everybody, and have a good night. Putt when ready.
Putt when ready.